Photography. So today we're going to talk about you, Kim. This is your mini documentary, and we're going to talk about how you started your business, about you being a female entrepreneur, starting Kimberly Nicole Photography, and a little bit about your background. I want to know about what you went to school for fashion, and I want you to tell me a little bit about what it was like being a female in the Marines. So let's start with most recently, your business, your current business, photography. How did you get to be a photographer?
I would say now I call myself a photographer. In the past couple of years, when I sort of launched it, but it's been such a soft start. I don't really know when it was a solid beginning, I suppose. If I'm to think about in the grand scheme of my life about when I how this all came about, it would be that my uncle Mac, he was my mother's uncle, so he's my great uncle, but I was pretty close to him as a child, and he was much older than me. He was probably in his 60s when I was a young, between 5 and 12 when I was close to him, and he was a Korean War vet, and we had this, I don't know what exactly these are called, but he, brought home, I think, from Korea, because it was like sort of a calligraphy type of, just this huge piece of art almost, right? It was maybe 5 by 5 or something. It hung above the TV, and it had sort of his pedigree of the places he had been when he was in Korea. And I remember it had mountains on it. And I mean, it was, it was watercolor type of illustrations. And he, I guess that's something about him that I always remember. But he always had a camera around his neck. And I think he probably had like a 35 millimeter, film camera at the time, because this was in the 90s, the early 90s. And he gave me a camera when I was maybe 10. I showed a lot of interest in it, and he bought me one. And I just sort of always have loved the idea of photography, and photos means a lot to me. I mean, I almost, I would say several times a week, I'll go back and look through my photo reel or see what my favorites were on this day, a year ago, 2 years ago. I think they hold a lot of sentimental value.
Yeah.
So I knew that I, could, and my screen keeps going blank or like dark because I think my phone isn't charged. It's not charged, but it's okay. I can put it on a charger, but I know that I don't want you to have to edit too much of this. So I know how video editing can go. Anyways, so I took a lot of terrible photos for a long time, because if you don't have the right instruments, it doesn't turn out as great. And so I took photos with my iPhone. Once I got an iPhone, my early 20s, I guess I was probably 19, 20 when I got my first iPhone. Who knows how many megapixels. I know that I also bought a camera when my daughter Riley was born. I bought a Nikon. It was a DSLR. It was a nice camera, but it wasn't anything that at the moment I could really learn how to use correctly. I still have that. And
so you started digital. You didn't start off with like a 35 millimeter.
Well, that's not true. Yes, I did. I did take photography in high school as well. So I actually got some darkroom experience, which was super cool. And I wish.
Yeah, I love the darkroom.
Yeah, it's a goal of mine to be able to do that in some capacity. Right now, it would be too complicated to fit into my life.
It's a lot of heavy chemicals too to have around kids, but apparently you can get all that stuff super cheap, like all the enlargers and all of those different baths and stuff.
Selling everything that no one uses anymore, probably. I don't know, but
yeah.
I know that there are places that you can go.
Your point about starting with the phone, I remember we're not too distant in age at all. So the first digital camera that I had was like 1 pixel. Remember how bad they were? So it's like
a flip phone camera phone. Like, my God.
Yeah, they really weren't comparable to anything that could be done with a 35 millimeter or anything that was an actual manual camera. So that to be fair to yourself, saying you took a lot of crappy pictures to start, you know, those tools didn't really exist yet, right? I mean, if you're starting, I mean, I guess if you were 19, maybe by then there was some better equipment, but surely not something that just any 19-year-old off the street can just afford.
Right. And I mean, I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and I think that it wasn't something I was trying to pursue professionally at that moment. I knew that I always wanted to. I knew that I always wanted to be a photojournalist. I knew that I loved to write.
Okay.
And that I love people's stories. And so truly, I think if I had to think of what I want to do in my life, it would be to tell people's stories through images, but also words. So that's just, I suppose my point is, through all of the years of my, 36 years, I have now come to do this in a way that more people see. I'm really refining my technical skills. I'm trying to, because there's still a lot that I have to learn. And when I said before that I wouldn't necessarily call myself a photographer, I mean, it's because I try to be humble about this whole thing. I mean, I have so much to learn still. I still make beginner mistakes. People say, "Oh, I love your photos," and I think that they mean that. And there are definitely photos that I take that I'm like, yeah, I did a great job on that one, or during that session. But every single session is different. Every single session teaches me new things.
And the participants make a big difference as well, right? I mean, there's some people that are, quote unquote, camera shy or camera cold. And there are other people that are very warm and comfortable in front of the camera, or just natural. I mean, even you've noticed that with kids, and I've seen you point it out in your stories and your different dialogues about your sessions where you're like, this kid was just a natural. Like they just let it shine in front of the camera.
Yeah. Kids are fun. They're actually pretty easy most of the time. I mean, until they get to the age where they're more aware of like, oh, this is a person taking a photo of me. But the kids who don't know that, and they're just like, what is that thing maybe hanging around her neck? I mean, I think I have to imagine that's what they think. Yeah. I follow them around and capture such like candid, amazing moments with those children. That's really fun to me. But
so now you officially consider yourself a photographer. I mean, so there's something that actually I think it was Kat Meyer that told me when we did her interview about her background and her work in herbalism. And she was like, you don't consider yourself an herbalist until the community starts calling you that. So the community is now, they're calling you a photographer. So now would you consider, I mean, not that you can't be an excellent photographer and still make mistakes. I mean, I think to err is human, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the beauty of it all, really, and what I want to really capture about people. I think
as well.
It makes me blush that people are calling me that. I mean, I just, I think I have a high standard and an expectation, and I want to deliver. And so certainly,
you have a good eye as well, a really good eye.
Yeah. From the very beginning, I think that's probably what I've always held, is that I can compose a shot and I can know what I want to be shooting. It is it's the science right behind photography that I don't exactly know yet. I mean, the lighting, the angles, the camera settings, those are things that I'm all trying to be better at. And like I checked out books from the library recently. I am taking this online workshop from a photographer. So it's going very slowly, this learning, because of obviously all the other things, my job and my kids and my life. But I'll get there. I just have to have patience, and people still want me to, work with them. And I think that's great. I think I'm also trying to shape who I am as a photographer, because I don't want to show up as, I actually had a really good moment of insight about this last night, and I took some notes on my phone. I feel like that's how I try to remember things these days, as I record it in my phone. But
yeah, I do that too.
I'm a pen and paper person. I really actually enjoy that, but I don't do it much anymore because I don't always have it handy, and I know that I'll forget. So I often
you always have your phone with you.
So. Most of the time I do, yeah. So I just try to like write down things because I know I won't remember them. Not anymore. I don't even remember like hardly anything. I forget some things lately. I do. Lately, I do. I've had a great memory up until about Max is maybe 6 months old, and I think it's all going downhill. I'll recover once the kids are older, maybe.
It's draining through the breast milk.
I don't know, man. It's going somewhere. It's the sleep, the lack of sleep, right? The lack of like, slow
the attention span for it. You don't have the space in the mind for it. You're like, there's other stuff right now.
Yeah. Only so much can fit. I think that is part of it, certainly.
So what was the epiphany, though?
Oh, right. Okay. So, I was just like, okay, where do you want to be, Kim? What lane? Because everything you read about how to make it in this digital media creator world is what's your niche, right? And who is your, I listen to a lot of story brand stuff because my background is in marketing, and story brand is, I don't know if you've ever heard of story brand, but it's Donald Miller. No. And he does, it's a pretty cool kind of like archetype of how to speak to people and get your messaging across. And so his whole thing is be the guide to your followers, but you also need to know who you're speaking to, right? And who your audience is. And so that's something I'm trying to figure out, like what genre of photography do I want to be in? And if I think about what means the most to me, it's really not like overly posed, overly edited photos. And I actually have tried those types of things and people tell me they don't like it. Seriously, like if I've done like really a lot of skin smoothing and the editing or something like that, they're like, I don't like that. And some people do. Some people are all about it, but I'm actually not. Like my personal taste would not be that. And
well, that's so you're talking about like the difference of high fashion versus like, family portraits and stuff like that, right?
But
or
even
wedding portraits
can go really down a lane of like overly edited, overly
structured.
Like not candid, not real. And
they're like, let's stand here with these pumpkins.
No, seriously. Yeah. It's like all the poses, all the things. And if I'm anything, it's on, like, I'm probably to a fault, real and honest. I try to be. And I think that's what I want to say in my photography. And so what lane does that put me in? Right. Mm-hmm. I could still take family photos that are real and honest and like not overly edited. And I don't know that I necessarily want to do that, just that. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think that I'm going to be in two lanes maybe, and I'll decide later what, which one I definitely want to go down. But I have narrowed it to this moment where I think I want to do birth photography. I want to pursue it like full force. I don't know that I want to pursue weddings too much. I mean, I have weddings booked and I'm excited about them. And I think it's great to capture love and all those beautiful moments. But at the end of the day, I'm a mom. I resonate with birth really closely and intuitively. And I always think of things relating to birth and raising children. And so I think, birth and not so much maternity, but lifestyle mom sessions. And what I mean by that is like, I want to come into your home and capture you with your infant or your children in a very natural setting and you doing what you would be doing if you're breastfeeding your kid in your bed with your top off. I want to see that.
Yeah.
If you're, if they're running around and your home is a mess and the real life stuff is what I want to be capturing, I think. But
have you thought about doing a book?
I have, not about moms, but I have a whole big idea about a coffee table book, or it's sort of like I'll finish that thought in a second. I'll start that thought in a second. Finish this whole birth thing. The one birth that I photographed was really special to me for a number of reasons, but it also it felt really good, and I thought, maybe this is what you need to pursue. And I didn't really expand on it much after that happened, but I think that's definitely a lane that I want to be in, is working with mothers and their children, and dads too, but like I think motherhood is something I personally relate to and want to see more of and be close to. Um, so that's one part of it. And then this other part, I guess we'll expand on this whole book idea that I have. So, and I sort of launched this last year when the Black Lives Matters kind of took full force, and across America it was a big topic. And United Faces of America, I bought this. I think I bought the domain name. It may have expired. I may not have renewed it. I hope no one hears that, because I need to do that now that I'm thinking, because I think it's a catchy name, but it is something that I also started an Instagram channel for, and I went and filmed my a friend from high school, because I wanted to share his story. It was just like I put out some feelers. He said, "Yeah, let's do it." I said, "Let's do it." It was very off the cuff. But I also went to the Black Lives Matter march, and that's just one, topic. There are many topics where people need to be heard and seen, and share their stories so that we could probably relate more to one another, because I think that we probably have a lot in common. We probably don't have a lot in common, but you also, like, the people who don't share these common things with you need to know about your experience so that maybe they have some empathy for you. So I would like to have sort of, if you think of Humans of New York, it would be like that, right? I would photograph people and hear their stories and write about them, but it would be across America. And I want to go to all of the little spaces that we don't really talk about. And I want to know, what happened in your life, and what are some really pivotal experiences that shaped you, and how do you feel about this? And I hope it would be eye-opening.
Yeah, I think it absolutely would be. I mean, I think first of all, I think all stories are eye-opening. I think, like what you're talking about, focusing on social injustice. I can't talk today. And the marginalized, and bringing out their stories and giving them a platform, giving them a voice, is very important. And it's important, like you're saying, to create a dialogue for people to understand and possibly develop sympathy and eventually empathy for other people's needs, and give them a space to live their lives, and I think that you cannot do that without conversation. You cannot do that without highlighting what's going on, either through media, even if it's just like what you're saying, your social media, your website. I mean, every little chip that you make, every dent that you make is starting to break down that wall. And so I think that I also would probably, I don't know how you feel about this, but from my experience, I definitely feel like, everybody can say that women have been marginalized for a long time, but that's sort of like old news right now. So nobody's going to walk around being like, especially not us, being like, we're two white women and we're marginalized, right? It's just like, they feel like, shut up, you're ridiculous. But I will say that, I mean, the struggle is real. Being a working mom, putting yourself out there, also giving 100% to this human, whether you're growing that human while you're working and then going back to work. I mean, the fact that we still don't have, full maternity leaves, or really any paid, you're lucky to get a paid maternity leave. If anybody gets that, good for you. But I feel like moms kind of fit in there too, like they really do. Like, it's a role that, for a while has been sort of just thrown in, and like, you're like, oh, they're moms do everything. You're great. Like 100%. And it's like, yeah, but I still need, it's like when you're pregnant, everybody's like, oh, wow, what do you need? What do you need? What can I bring you? And then you have the baby, and they're sort of like, oh my God, just the baby. And you're like, what about me?
It's so true. I can't. I can't. Sometimes I can't even articulate it, because I haven't had enough distance from it. Because
right.
I have an 8-month-old and I have a 3-year-old, and I have a 12-year-old too. But there's, you forget what that was like, and
because you just get through it. You're like, press on, get through it.
You really do, and it's an interesting topic. It's something. Sure, we should. I 100% believe we should talk about. But you're right. Like, how do you say it without being tone deaf about other people's lives that are, and the way that we treat women in motherhood is, yes, it's systemic, but it's different. You know,
It
moms
is
aren't,
different.
I would say
Still
moms
like,
aren't dying, but they could be. You know, postpartum depression could cause
it's a real
suicide. I mean, I
thing.
don't know.
That's for
Yeah,
true.
I don't know the rates behind that, but
I guess what
it's
I'm talking about is relating to conversations that people feel uncomfortable about having. Like, people don't want to
yeah,
hear about, I don't know how many people tried to tell my husband when I was pregnant, like, you don't want to be on the business end of that. Like, you don't want to watch that. Like, so what I'm saying is, like, the fact that you want to do birth photography, the fact that you want to take a picture of a woman with her breasts out, when, I mean, people bring me a cover up, like a blanket, when I'm just casually at their house. Like, do you want to just, like, and then it makes me feel like, oh, should I? I'm not like that now, but like as a first time mom, yeah, like I was like, oh, am I making them uncomfortable? But then it's like, no,
right.
forget that. I'm feeding my child. So I guess what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to tie, if you want to see them as two separate paths, I think that you're right. They are two separate paths. But when I hear you talk about these two different lanes, I feel like the overarching structure is that you want to tell the uncomfortable stories. And that's what true art should do, right? Like, you should discomfort the comfortable and comfort the discomforted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that insight a whole bunch, because I haven't really like had a deep conversation probably with anybody about it yet, because I'm just having these thoughts last night. I mean, I've been shaping this for a while, and people know that I want to say something with my photography. And I think,
Yeah.
well, and I don't want to lose momentum behind something you said, about, the business, that being behind or, at the business end of that. But I will say that I think that is evoked, you feel that from me mostly in my photography. People, at least that's how they respond, right? That they know that I'm trying to convey something to them. And when I was sort of brainstorming these words and writing notes about it last night, I thought, unpretentious. Like, that's again, I don't want to have to spend hours editing your photos. I don't want to pretend about, so even with family photos, you can find these like very smooth, glossy, like staged photos. Are they beautiful? Yes. Do I want to have a client closet so that that everybody's in ideal colors and, it all meshes? Yeah, that makes for a fantastic photo, but it's not real. And it can also be intimidating to people. So
Yeah, it can set a dangerous standard for, the mom who's like, I really want a picture of my family so I can remember this, but I don't look like that.
Right.
Like,
that's what I mean too. Yeah.
Like, is that how is that I'm supposed to look perfect all the time? Like, I just popped this baby out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. It's that holds its space, and it's fine, because we all like to be beautiful and feel good about ourselves. I don't believe that that's not worthy of attention, but it's just not what I want to do. I don't
Yeah.
think. So, will I still have to do some of those types of things? Family photos, headshots, all the stuff to build my business? Yeah. But when I think of what my ideal situation is, it would be that I would photograph, human stories and share those. So, and primarily birth probably, but my fantasy project is that, we'll eventually like renovate this Airstream we have had setting outside for 5 years, and I'll, tow it across America with my kids, and we'll meet people and be better humans for it. So to the end game, I suppose.
A personal connection to that Airstream story, because I spent the first 3 years of my life traveling around the country with my parents in an Airstream. And
Really?
I still have, I have some of those memories. It's really wild, because I don't have, like, when I think back, like through memories, it's hard for me to get like a clear timeline, but that is obvious that's when that was, because the Airstream.
Yeah, you remember like the big shiny bullet looking.
Yeah, it was my parents. They wanted to like
home.
find different properties. They're hippies and there's not, I don't mean to use that like a dirty word, but they were looking for their tribe, looking to buy like, a nice, beautiful plot of land and, set up their off the grid lifestyle. And I think they just wanted to travel around, and they did like the West, like the Four Corners, and then did Oregon. And so I have a lot of memories of that. So yes, the Airstream is close to my heart. I think that's not only because it's personal to me, but that sounds like a blast. Sounds like a beautiful way to show your kids what's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's important because if you don't know, I mean, I didn't know when I was a kid. I think that's great that you did that. I mean, it's something I've always dreamt of. And I thought, real life just, even if you have these desires, like sometimes it just takes hold of you and you just go with it. Like, I know I need to make money. I know I need to do these things. And I get scared to let go of the job or let go of like having my own income.
What's your day job?
Well, yeah, marketing and digital media. I do for a real estate company, and just these little side hustles of, more digital media, more photography, branding, stuff like that. I think I have had enough experience at this point that I've become, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in all topics marketing, but I'm an expert in a few topics that deal with marketing. And that's good because it is what I went, to college for. I have an advertising and marketing degree, and it's been a long time coming, I think. But at this point, I can freelance and charge a rate that will sustain me, and I also have some flexibility, which is great. But at the end of the day, if I had to really tell you what I would want to do, it would be to be with my kids. I mean, they drive you nuts, sure, like a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, or an 8-month-old and the 12-year-old and her needs. But
well, like you said, all moms, ideally, you want to stay home. You'd like to spend time with your kids, and you have built your business up enough where you potentially, I mean, you have the opportunity to now do that. So what's holding you?
If I were to be very specific about it and very like honest with myself, it would be, can you be a full-time stay-at-home mom? And I think that I like to be busy. I have gained patience for that type of what that means, right? Stay-at-home mom, because I have not had full-time childcare since my daughter was born. Um, Whereas with Max, I did. He was not in the very beginning, but maybe around 6 months, he started to go full-time to daycare, and that was our life. And I went to work, and Greg went to work, and I worked from home mostly, but it was definitely full-time work. And then I started the side hustle of photography and all of that. So I think I am in a space where I I can't see myself being full-time stay-at-home mom, but could I be here and work 20% of the time? Yes. What does that mean? I don't really know, because it's never been a life that I've lived. I mean, I've always worked, and I've always, for 12 years now, had a child, and now I have three. And um, I know that I just want to be with my kids more. I want to say that I don't want to continue to tell them that I have to do this, I have to do that. And because my job is flexible, and because I do things on the weekends, or, because I haven't had childcare, and so I'm with them during the day, but I have to work at night, or I have to work at the weekend or during the weekend, and also because my job can be performed from a digital device like my phone, I could work anywhere, and often I do, and I don't have a great boundary with it. So I think if I, again, if I needed to really say what I'm trying to say, it would be that I need to set better boundaries with work and be with my kids. When I'm with them, I'm only with them. I am not checking my email. I am not trying to squeeze something in at some point because I know I need to get it done. It's just like 100% focus on them. And then when the time comes that I'm going to work, then I work. I swear, like, it's just like I never can give myself to one thing fully right now. And I think that's, what I want to be doing. I want to give myself fully to something. I mean, I do with my children mostly, but yeah. I mean, I do with my children mostly.
But isn't
but
that the trials and tribulations of being human? right? I mean, like it's like you're constantly
Yeah.
trying to find a way to live fully in the moment. I mean, in a way, music does that and photography does that, right? It captures a moment. It keeps you, it can keep you, give you a little bit of zen there. But I mean, that's, I feel like a human struggle in general. Even when you're not running your own business, it's like, how do I stay present?
Yeah.
How do I think about what's going on right now and fully enjoy it?
Yeah. And it's something I do a lot less of these days. I mean, I catch myself in moments where I breathe. I try to use my breath to say, okay, just pause here for 1 second and feel this out. And when I do that, I feel better in that moment, and I try to stay calm through most stuff, but you're right. I mean, it's something that, yeah, it's the human experience, and we all have the ability really to, have those moments where we're present and aware, but you have to be willing to do the work to get there, or just you have to be taught how to, use those tools to get there type of thing. And not everybody gets given those tools. Like I would bring that back to the whole photography thing and life experience, right? And sometimes I see these posts that are very exclusive and from like these white crunchy granola like mom blogs that I follow, and they bother me because it's no, it's so
You're
true.
like, and
I
I
just have to
follow
say
and
this
they
because it's
bother me. But
well, there is valuable information, but the way that it is presented is like so this or that. Like if you don't do this, you are bad. That is so terrible to do to women because we already are in our own head. Greg tells me all the time. He's like, God, it must be torture to live in your brain because all you're doing is thinking about everything all the time. And I'm like,
just
I
turn it
know
off, right?
it
Just turn it
is.
off.
Yeah, that's what he says because he doesn't have, these um is this done? Is that done? We have to do this. He can chill on a Saturday, whereas like me, I'm like, okay, we have
You're
to
like,
do all
what are
these
you
things.
doing? Get up. We have a list of stuff that
Yeah,
you
yes, I am.
I
I
do the
am like
same
that, and
thing.
I get annoyed or whatever else. And he's like, "What is wrong? What's going
He's
on?"
like, this is my day
But I
off.
say all of it. Yeah, I don't feel like I have days
Yeah.
off in that way because I have small children. There will be another season of my life where I will, but um, it is, I don't like that when people, especially when it comes to diet and nutrition, if you've never been taught about those types of things, that's the second point I want to make. If you've never been taught, the first point I want to make is it is so expensive to buy
It
premium
really is.
organic, like even if it's not organic, but like even if it's healthful
And it
food,
doesn't last.
it is so
Like you
expensive.
can't buy a bunch of
Yeah.
kale and a bunch of mangoes and avocados. And I mean you can, but you need to eat them like within those couple of days. Like you can't like go out and spend,
Yeah.
a couple $100 at the grocery store and then have food for a couple weeks. Like you have food for that week. And like I know that
Yeah.
we both strive to do that, but also can I just say on a side note, avocados, those things, I love them, but it's like it's not ripe, and then it's ripe for like 2 seconds, and then you're like, I need to
Yeah.
eat them.
Then
Yeah.
it's black.
You're like,
Yeah, you
great, now
open
I
it and
just
it's black.
wasted $8 of organic avocados. But okay,
Seriously.
so back to what you're saying. Yes, it's expensive to eat that way. Yeah, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I get your point though too. Yeah, it's perishable food and it do you know how to prepare it? And like it's just this information is presented in a way that is condemning in a way like or like it can be very not condemning, but I don't know the word I'm looking for. I kind of get annoyed with that type of stuff
Because
because
they're like, if you don't eat
I
this
know
way,
that I never
you're a terrible person.
yeah,
Like you're
like
so
what are you doing
unhealthy.
giving your children these things? Yeah, and like it's like, dude, you do what you can. And I was that way with Riley. I was very strict about what she ate, but I started to loosen up. And then, as the cliche type of, stereotypes go, second and third kid, I'm much more loose. And Max has had like chips for breakfast, and I don't like that he does that. Do I wish he wouldn't? Sure. Am I going to argue with him when I have to get out the door and get him dressed, get Lydia dressed? All the things that have to happen in a morning, I'm not going to argue with him. I'm say whatever, have the chips, man. You're not going to be deemed terrible forever because you had chips for breakfast. I mean, it's just these things. I think my key point, and again, it ties into what I want to say to the world is like, let's be kind to each other, right? Let's try to be aware that we all don't live in the same upbringing where someone was giving us these types of food. Obviously, people of different socioeconomic statuses can have a harder time making it in this world. And if people need to recognize that. There are a lot of people who deny that, and like anybody can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. That is true. That is my life. Certainly, I have done that given my
What do you
background.
mean? What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that, I think, is that um, as a child, my family history you could call it sordid, I suppose. If we were to really, um, I won't go too deep into the details because, like I was sort of just telling you off camera, sometimes I don't want people to believe that I'm just saying it for attention or for them to feel some way for me. I more or less share pieces of my story because I think I want to inspire people. I want to relate to people. I want to process it for myself. Really that's one of the most honest things I could say about it is it takes time to really deal with traumatic things that might have happened to you. And sometimes I find that I'm not even dealing with it until, in this moment in my life, like, in my 30s.
Yeah.
Because I do a good.
Well, you have to push it aside, right, in order to
Yes,
continue
you do.
to live. You can't live in that moment, so you have to what is it? Compartmentalize it, in order for your brain to actually not break. It's a mechanism, right, that you use to protect yourself. And then you can when I have time, when I feel safe, I can unpack.
So true. It couldn't be more true for me. I mean, I don't think that I really began to unpack anything that had ever happened to me until I was maybe 30 years old. And there were times that I was very reckless and careless with my life until then. And there are moments where I still find myself having bad habits in that way. But
Kim, sorry, I have to stop you for a second. Are you playing
you
with
can
something
hear
in
it.
your hand?
Oh my God. I didn't know you could hear all of
Yes.
that. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll stop. I'm going to stop fidgeting.
And I just don't want your monologue to be ruined by, the fidgeting, but it is honest because like you said, I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
No, I'm not uncomfortable. I'm 0% uncomfortable, really.
Okay.
I think that I just can have in my own head, I can have a judgment about it because I think that people are going to think something of me or about me. But, as I get more mature and more self-aware and more comfortable with who I am, I'm okay with, even if I have this preliminary, bit of insecurity about whatever it is, I usually can put that to the side because I can be real with myself and I now have, X amount, 36 years of maturity and self-awareness and life experience where I can say, okay, if I think this through, I'm allowed to say what I want and I'm allowed to be who I am. And I also give that space to anybody, in the world, not give, but I try to offer space, for that to happen in anyone's life, if you're coming in contact with me. So all of that is to say that I am a person, yes, that had to pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I often get told, and sometimes it can be offensive, probably because of my own, issue, but people will say, man, you've done so well, especially given your circumstances as a child. My parents, had me at a very young age. My parents are only 55 today, right? So I have friends that are that age. I have many friends, actually, that I am close to that are 55. And that's always an interesting perspective for me. And so that didn't set them up to be the most amazing parents. I mean, some young parents do a great job. my parents were not ready for that. And they also had their own like drama and issues probably to work through. And so I became part of that. I grew up with them in a lot of ways. And so as a young person, a young human in the world, I mean, I experienced my parents and their addiction. My dad has, struggled with alcoholism since I can remember. My youngest memories are moments of that and kind of just havoc in my household because of his drinking and his and sort of the Jekyll and Hyde type of person he would become. And he's never been abusive when he's sober, but he's been terribly abusive when he has been, drunk, which was often. And then it escalated into harder drugs. I mean, crack cocaine for a long time my parents were addicted to. And so when things like that happen to you, I feel emotional about it. I mean, but really the only people that understand that type of stuff are people who either have been through it or like my sister. You build a bond through trauma because she knows exactly how that went too. And so, we didn't have a lot of regulation in our home. We never had a sort of a typical family interaction or dynamic because when your parents are on drugs, I mean, it doesn't stop on the weekdays, on school nights. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop. Like it's a full-time thing. So on school nights we would have drug dealers come to our house and it would be late at night and they would be up and there would be no one to wake us up in the morning. And so that's also probably some of my inability to process time or like be very punctual is because it was a learned behavior. Going back to like,
you basically had to raise yourself. You had to figure out.
I did have to figure out a lot of things by myself. And I also had to figure out a lot of things for my siblings because I was the oldest of three. And it also didn't, their lifestyle didn't lend to having money ever. It didn't lend to my mom, or my dad really teaching me how to value myself as a woman, right? And not to seek out negative attention or, just not be promiscuous, not, do all the things that you feel maybe your parents, especially your mother, should teach you is value who you are. Don't go crazy because someone showed you some sort of attention, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that whatever it was in me, I always had a good work ethic. I did well in school until I didn't, in high school when I really just sort of said, I don't care. And I actually dropped out of high school twice. But I did graduate on time. I had to take, I lost all sort of, I would say, esteem for like, I was on the National Honor Society. I was in ROTC. I was doing all of these good things. But once I stopped caring, you don't get to do those things anymore. So I graduated with a very basic diploma, whereas I wish I could have. I don't really care that much now, but there was a long time where I felt like, wow, you could have walked across with your sash that said that you were in the Honor Society, but you didn't because you did all these other stuff, things. And, in the middle of all of that, because that was like the heat of my parents' issues probably, my sister was in a car accident and died with a good friend of mine. So that was April of my senior year of high school. And it was something that everybody in the county knew about because it was a small county and grew up in Culpeper. And I still don't even know how to process some of that. I loved my sister very much. I know death is a part of life. I don't really hold it in the same place that a lot of my family does because they are very religious and they're Christian. So they have certain beliefs about it all. Whereas I don't know that I'm agnostic or atheist, or I don't know what I am. I know that there's something out there that governs the universe. I don't know what it is, but I don't believe that it's God, like the Christian God.
Right. It's not simply
right. Yeah. I don't,
hell.
I don't exactly know what it all means or is, but and maybe I never will, but I know that I didn't hold it in the way that they did. And I still don't. I don't know how I feel. I just know that it's a sad thing that happened, and I would hate to lose my child. It's probably my biggest fear in life is to lose one of my children. But I know that it could happen. That is a thing that you have to deal with any person that you love, is that we are finite. There is a finite amount of time that each of us will live.
Yeah.
I don't know where we go after, but anyway, so in the midst of all of the drama with my parents, like that happens, and I probably spiraled a little bit out of control, even more so than maybe I had been. And then I just said, I'm going to go to the Marine Corps. I just thought, okay, something in me I have this badass streak where I'm like, I will do it and I'm going to be the best at it. Right. And I'm going to, I have a very can-do, fearless attitude. I'm trying to be less fearless and more aware and strategic, I would say. You can't just go into things blindly or recklessly, because you'll get hurt. Especially, I'm finding out, as you age, your body does not do as well with injury or whatever else, And again, I'm not old, but I do.
You're like, I used to be able to just throw myself around.
All these injuries pop up.
Back.
Yeah.
Just
And I'm like,
sleep the
damn,
wrong
man,
way.
what is this? So, and I want to be softer with myself, because I have a defensive nature, I think, because of some of the stuff I've been through, right? We were talking about trauma.
You're in survival mode.
And so people don't, when you meet people, and again, why I want to tell someone's story, when you meet people at face value, you don't know all these things. And when they come at you a certain way, you're like, why are they, you can make a judgment about them and say, why are they doing that? But it's because something likely has happened, and they have this conditioning. And so I've unconditioned myself to many things. And I just, I did live in a little bit of a space where I would make myself a victim maybe for a few years. And the truth is that you are a victim of those circumstances. But if you live in that forever, you'll never accomplish anything. If you just say, eventually you can come to a place, at least I did, that those things happened, they sucked, and then after the Marine Corps, which again was like, okay, what badass thing am I going to go do? I'm going to go be a Marine. It was awesome, and I'm so happy I did it. But I fell into an abusive relationship, marriage. And so I was with a man that, Riley's father, I was with him, and it was terrible. I mean, there were moments I thought, that I might die. And so you have PTSD from that, right? I mean, I honestly probably don't have a ton of PTSD from going to Iraq twice, being deployed to war. I have some, but I have more probably from just my life. And this sort of...
From being abused by the people that are supposedly... Not being in war, but actually the loved ones.
I mean, it's something I still haven't worked completely through. And that's okay, because it takes time, and I'm just in a much better space, and I'm happy with so much of my life, and I'm happy I've shaped it in this way. But people ask me a lot, or say something like I said before, right? They say, you've done so well, especially given your circumstances. But to me, that almost discredits, have I not done well if I didn't experience any of that? And so that's why I get a little annoyed with that statement. Because I think in any circumstance I've done well. I've figured some stuff out for myself. I have a home, I have beautiful children, I have a loving, supportive environment and community that I'm a part of. And all of that is very wonderful. I feel good about it all. I think,
no matter who you are.
Do I know, could I have done that? I suppose if we get back to the original point about people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, I did that. And I continue to do that, because sometimes I look at Greg's family, for example, and he has his parents, they do things differently. They have income. He will have an inheritance. There will be things for him. This will not be that will not happen when my parents die. And that's morbid to say, but, and we can reach out to his mother without being asked for something in return, right? I can say, can you watch Max today? And she does, and she's amazing. Sometimes if I ask my family for something, there will be something asked back from me. You know what I mean? There is not, there are those types of things. And I hate to even say that on camera, but because if they hear it, there might be something like, I can't believe you said that, but it's the truth. And so I'm going to say it.
But
yeah,
you're real. You're not, I mean, you said from the beginning, and I know that from, our relationship, I know you to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, I really respect about you. And I really appreciate, you as a woman for being that way.
Thanks.
For being completely honest. And I strive to be the same way. I mean, even to sometimes where you're honest to a fault, where like, maybe you should have kept your mouth shut, but you're like, you know what? I can't live with this on, my chest this way, and it needs to be said, because it's like, someone could say that that's hurtful, but like it's true. And that's how you feel.
Yeah, that is the essentially if you get down to it, that's right. I mean, and I think too, for me, it's almost an overreaching of the I actually can do the video now, so I'm going to just like film myself a little bit with my phone. Some of it is an overreaching of the dishonesty that I was taught, because there were moments in my life where I was dishonest because those were the things that I was taught. Again, I don't know that I want everybody in the world. I don't know that I want my mother to hear this, but like, she would tell us to lie about why we weren't at school, why she couldn't go somewhere. We would call in for her. If you have people lying to you at a young age, you learn that lying is okay. Or not, you don't have to disclose everything all the time, and you also learn these behaviors that I find in myself a lot, like saying sorry, or feeling guilty for something that has nothing to do with me, or over-explaining, my feelings or thoughts or why I did something.
Yeah.
Is because you learn that through the events that, I was shaped in that way by especially my mom. And so, and I feel for her. I just created a Facebook post about how I feel for her and her circumstances as a young woman she had 3 kids by like, I think 24, that's a lot. You don't have any resources. I get it all. And I try to have space for that. But I think that,
and she was barely grown
and she just didn't have.
She's trying to, grow kids, and she wasn't.
So
grown.
I have space for her now that I've had all my children, and I see how difficult it can be to do all of it. But I don't know that could I have done it if I were Black? I don't know. Could I have done it if I were an immigrant? I don't know. I don't know these things. So sometimes I think that you will find people that say, that critical race theory, for example, isn't true, right? That's not real. Or the systemic racism isn't real. And I use racism because I think it's closest to me. I have a ton of Black friends. My brother-in-law is Black. I am familiar with the Black community. And so it is something that I have some advocacy for. But it could apply to anything. It could apply to, like we were talking about, the way that these posts are made about the diets you feed your kids, or the behaviors that your children have, or even the way that we act on an individual level, not as moms, but as women or as men. And it's very this or that, and it's black and white. But life lives, you live in the gray area a whole lot. There is not a fine line or, a concrete line about many things. And that's why, again, I don't like so much this, if you don't feed your children this, or if you don't ingest these things yourself, right? It's you're being oblivious. You're sitting on your privileged box when you say things like that. You're sitting on your privileged box when you say that people don't have hard lives, where it is nearly impossible for them to escape their circumstances, because it is. And more people need to be aware of that. For imagine I say this a lot, like imagine a black man in Atlanta, the deeper South, who grew up with very few resources. Perhaps his parents were present, maybe they weren't. If they were, they didn't have resources. He grew up in a very, a culture where drug dealing was part of how you made money. Tell me how you get out of that, you privileged person. Tell me.
Right, when everybody that you know.
Tell me what he needs to do and how
connections
difficult
that you
it might
have.
be for him to get out of what he has to do. Does it make him a terrible person? No. Should he have some self-awareness? Sure. But how do you expect people to do certain things? I mean, so it just all boils back to me, I guess, wanting to capture that, like in the human struggle, and that's, I guess, my story too, of how I have struggled. I still struggle. Sometimes I feel like, why couldn't it be easier? Why can't I have these things that other people have? But I just try to, put those thoughts out of my mind, and more thoughts of, I'll have it, I'll achieve that. My path has been a little bit slower, a little bit less, straight or beelined, to my objectives lately, because I do have small children to take care of, and that's where the majority of my energy is focused. But I'm okay with that. I try to have myself, give myself patience and grace, because, you do what you can every day. You get as much done as you can, and then you go to bed and you do it again. I mean, it's like Groundhog's Day a lot lately. Truly.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And, and then there is that list that you have of your, like, I've got this stuff, that these problems that need to be solved, or you constantly have a, to-do list of things that need to be fixed around the house or whatever it is. And you think, why, like what you said, why can't it be easier? But then you really have to sit back and be thankful for what you have. The fact that you have a house. We both have houses in, safe places. Yeah. We have opportunities. We have,
I mean, yeah, that's a huge one. Having healthy kids for them,
because, I mean, health as well. I mean, you can attest to it. I mean, it's not just what you eat. It's not just what you do. Your mental health takes a huge toll on your immune system.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it brings me back to when you're saying, these people on these blogs, these moms being like, oh, you need to have whatever it is, the fresh avocados and bananas, and whip that up for them in the morning. And it's like, yeah, but are they feeling loved and safe? And, do they feel a sense, not just a sense of structure, as in, like, we're talking about, being good with time. I mean, like, do they feel like they can count on their parents? Do they feel safe? Do they feel like they're in a safe environment?
So huge.
That's a huge part.
What you just said. Do they feel like they can count on their parents? I think I'm sitting in sort of this space after I've talked about my life of, I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling the things that I've been through viscerally at the moment. And that is something that is very important. Can you count on your parents? And if you can't, because I never could, it fucks with you. Sorry, I don't know if you edit out bad words, but yeah.
I leave them in. I don't have the FCC on my program.
Because again, that's very real, right? You should say what you mean, but yeah, it fucks with you, and it shapes every part of your being, because it's like your formative years that you need to feel loved and understood and heard and all of the things. And when you don't have that, not everybody I'm not tooting my own horn, but I don't know. I am a determined person. Not everybody is, and you can be, if you don't have if you have a weak mind in that way, I don't want to label it as weak, but if you have a less than determined mentality, it could be very difficult for you to achieve something in life.
Well, not everybody makes it out. Not everybody makes it. I mean, not just, out in the sense like to a point in their life where they actually get to look back on their traumas and process them and be like, wow, this is who I am as a person, and I feel, for good or, for better or worse, this is, what made me strong. Not everybody gets to that point. And not everybody gets out in the sense that not everybody gets out of the poverty. Not everybody gets out of the cycle of trauma, the cycle of addiction, I mean, the choices that you make really dictate that. And I mean, and your choice to get into the Marines, to be like, whoa, okay, I know that I can do structure. I know I can do hard work. I know I can handle this. You found your, I don't know if you would say it was the most positive outlet, but it's not a negative outlet. I don't know how you categorize that, but, that's definitely a jump. It's definitely a brave jump to go and do that, but you had to do that to find your way out. And even though you jumped into something else that became also extremely, I guess you could, I'm not a psychologist, or a therapist, and I don't pretend to be, but when I hear something like that, I'm like, okay, she felt at home, she felt, she grew herself, and then she jumped right back into something that felt like her original home.
Yeah.
Like, a relationship that reflected what you knew, not what you felt about yourself and your true value, but what you knew, what you grew up with. And then, but all of that made you the woman that you are today. I mean, and then I feel like we're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
but I mean, there's some times where
this
that's
moment,
okay.
but it's
like the cliche type of stuff. Like people say that, right? A lot. Like it made you the woman you are today, but it's still true. But it's true. I mean, yeah, sometimes you just have to say that type of stuff because it still means, something.
I know, but it's like when people, to me, and I know that you don't know what, I guess a lot of times it's because people don't know what to say.
Yeah, they
and
mean
maybe that's
well.
the case in this scenario. It's like it's like when you lose somebody and somebody says, I'm sorry for your loss. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't do anything to, like, I mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I want to give you a hug and I want to tell you that I love you.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for going there with me.
Oh, I thought you meant because
I've like forgotten so many times like that we're recording just because I felt so comfortable with you and having this conversation and feel so honored that you would open up to me in this way and to really to our potential audience, to everybody that's out there, because, well, I mean, I have my reasons of why I think you did it, but why did you open up to us that way?
Well, I want to respond and say, that I appreciate you and would definitely hug you back. I just, I thought you were saying that what you just said in response to when people tell you that they're sorry for your loss. I didn't track that at the beginning.
I think that too. I think both.
But I was like, that's why.
That's what I try and say to people.
But
mainly because I agree with you and don't like saying I'm sorry. Like if I'm late, instead of saying I'm sorry, I'd rather say
and I try to make that a habit. Oh, it's so true. I try to make that a habit now, and I notice myself saying that more. Like, I appreciate that you were flexible. I also notice myself when someone passes that I say, there's nothing I can really say, but I'm here for you if you need to talk to me. And I can be very candid and frank about the toll that death can take in it when someone is close to you, that it just takes time is the only thing I can tell anybody. Like that sting of and again, I'm not answering your question directly, but I'll just say that sting takes time to dissipate, like when you lose someone very close to you. And I think it can take years, to really be okay.
There's no time limit on it.
But I mean, I think I opened up because that is naturally who I am. I like to have these conversations. I like to share my story. Again, not so much for attention, but just so that it's relatable, so that people can understand. If someone sees me and says, and again, this is not from my own head, but people say, you're this, you're that, in a complimentary way. I still don't know always how to take their compliments, and sometimes I don't even believe them. That's my own issue. But I think that I want them to know whatever challenge they face, it's possible to overcome and get to where you want to be too. You know, you can, like, through any kind of opening up I do, it's for that reason, right? It's to be inspiring without the pretension of, I want to be inspirational, because I have taught yoga. I have been in that world. And again, I don't mean to be negative, but this woo-woo world of Fantasyland sometimes, where you haven't experienced trauma or these other things, and you just expect people to not be angry, not have a chip on their shoulder, not have this stuff they have to process, and be all glitter and gold and happy. It doesn't go like that, guys. And I think that's why I share, because you can have both. You can have this amazing enlightenment. You can have experienced some trauma. You can still achieve your goals. You know, that's why I open up, I suppose. And I feel comfortable with you. I think we've known each other for some time, and I think it's a beautiful thing what you're doing. It's akin to what kind of I want to do with, like, the humans of or United Faces of America. I mean, I think it's really cool that you're, you know, it's very locally focused, which I know that it's expanding, you know, into Warrenton and other places, but it's good to hear everybody's stories and know what they're up to. And I loved hearing Noel and Brooke's podcast, or, you know, stories. I didn't listen, you know, wasn't able to listen to the entire thing, mostly because we don't have cell service, so I can't really, like, on my drive listen to it. So I have to find these, like, pockets of time. And I mean, I just thought Noel has always been such a cool guy to me. Brooke too. I think they're both interesting people, and so to get to know them better through your interviews with them was really special. So thank you for doing that, and it's a great idea, and I think keep at it. I know it's hard to get in front of people, and people want to see silly stuff sometimes. Like you said, they like a cat photo more than they like something very real. And I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole about how it's okay to put, like, women's asses on Instagram, but it's not okay. Like, there's a sensitive photo label over every birth ever because it's a vagina or a breast. And I'm like,
whoa,
this woman is naked and it's super hypersexualized. This other woman is doing something that is supernatural and having a baby. Why can't we show this? And why is that sensitive content? For what reason? Like, oh, that burns me up. I just don't know why it has to be a thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
But man.
Well,
thank you. Thank you for having me.
So much. And thank you for giving me
a virtual hug.
I did not expect it. Yeah, a virtual hug. I'm going to give you a kiss. I did not expect to end the interview with you thanking me for doing what I'm doing. So thank you for doing that. Have a little thank you fest here at the end. But I wish you the best, and I hope to see you in person soon. And thank you so much for coming on Rapid Handing.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you. And I know we're saying thank you. How many times we said thank you? This is my first time doing something like this, so it's been so fun. I hope it reaches people.
I've enjoyed it.
Despite all the weird, like, lighting and technical difficulties, we made it happen. So I hope you have a great day. I'm going to go off to my meeting, and you go to your baby and all those things, and I'll see you soon. Okay.